one of the things that I find very interesting and peculiar is that a lot of people think that in general, when it comes to extraterrestrials or it comes to the intelligence community or the military or even the military industrial complex, a lot of people tend to think that although, yes, they understand, just like you and I do, that it is a chess game, whether that's technologically, scientifically, you name it, a lot of people think that they're trying to remove pieces off the chess board entirely. So essentially, if we were to translate that to reality, that would mean eliminate the target. But that's not always the case. And I say that because think about a 5-dimensional game of chess. You don't necessarily want to remove a pawn or a castle or a bishop or what have you off the board if you know that down the road it is actually worth it to keep them alive longer than to actually capture them or eliminate them. And you'll see what I mean by this as I come full circle here. But before I do that, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sean E. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Sean, for watching the show and supporting. I will get to everyone else over the next coming days as well. So we have a lot to cover here. Special Order 937, the only above classified wormhole, and you're going to see why there's quotes around the word wormhole, that confirms human ET mutilations worldwide. So let's take a look. First off, we have to understand what Special Order 937 was. Now, this was actually something all the way back from the 50s. Special Order 937 was a letter, if you will, or a cable, an intelligence cable that talked about the different human souls and the different gray alien souls. Now, I'm going to get to that shortly, that are extracted in many different ways, that are utilized for different hybridization programs and for many other things as well that we're going to bring full circle here. Now, let's take a look. First off, we have to play devil's advocate. And if we look at Special Order 937, a very basic Google search, because I'm all about playing both sides. We have to look at all the angles, right? You're going to see a perfect example of a psychological warfare disinformation program. And what I mean by that is this. Special Order 937 just so happens to be a subset of a storyline plot within the Alien versus Predator timeline and the story, like, the film franchise. Please do not mistake that for what's being discussed here. I just want to make that very clear. So I'm going to jump right into it. Now, I do have to be honest with you guys. This is the first time where I cannot reveal a couple of my sources here. With that being said, maybe if by the time I put this up, I'll change my mind, but we'll see what happens. So if we take a look at a quote, let's say, from a source, this is what they have said. And this has to do with the underground military bases that actually lead to man-made wormholes that allow the Greys and the Pleiadians, particularly the Nordics, to within this dimension, not the ones that have ascended into a higher spiritual dimension, to transport different souls of different animals, of different humans, and of different aliens that they are not getting along with in terms of a factional basis through this type of teleportation device, and it's all going to come full circle. So let's take a look here. Now, and I quote, "The big bay door entry represents the black door, as it's called. This front door entry is suspected to be back down the hill going in an easterly direction away from TA-33 along RT-4. At the bottom of the hill is another tech area with controlled access. People who have worked in Tech Area 33 know about underground facilities there, not related to this subject, but are not aware of just what's behind that huge bay door, which, according to this same retired lieutenant colonel, lies further down the ridge line. And just like at WPAFB, Ohio, an estimated 99% of the people assigned to Los Alamos labs don't know of the experience of this reported underground 6-story facility, or if they know of it, they don't know what it's used for, or they're not on the need to know." End quote. So why do we have to understand this? We have to understand this because humans at this point in time have essentially entered the space race thanks to a handful of, I guess we could call, extraterrestrial entities that have shared certain technology with us. Now, That is not to say that we have been given technology that is entirely accessible and is fully fledged to be at the same standard or level as these other beings. But let's take a look next here and let's see what we have to look at next. The next thing here is that, and I quote, continuing on from the same source, I had been warned by a prominent ufologist that there was a lid screwed down tighter than you would believe in regards to human mutes, meaning mutations. Okay, now let's take a look next. This journalist did an interview with someone who had access to these underground bases, and I want to quote this very quickly. And I quote, what other kind of interesting interplay has gone on behind the scenes lately? There are apparently a lot of skirmishes going on. A lot of it, then this is a lieutenant colonel that has answered this. A lot of it has involved the Pleiadians and the Greys. To my knowledge, it hasn't moved beyond these two groups going after each other. The Greys are trying to get out of here. I was told about a situation reported to me which occurred about 2 or 3 years ago. I was given information that a 21-mile-long craft was seen leaving the equator from under the ocean. The Tau Cetians, the Pleiadians, and a group from Zeta Reticuli I, who were not service to self, formed a triangular position to block this craft, which was trying to get off Earth and evade the quarantine the Andromedan Council is trying to establish relative to alien races visiting Earth. Anyways, they captured the craft, which belonged to the Dows, which are large white-skinned Greys. They were also able to board the craft, and they found 8,700 hybrid children. All right, this is going to connect back to an episode from a few days ago. The journalist then says, human hybrid children? Gray human hybrids? Which one is it? The lieutenant colonel then goes, yes. They were trying to get the hybrids off the planet, even though the whole hybrid program is a lost cause. Then the lieutenant general goes on. Lieutenant Colonel, he goes, there's more. They also found more than 1,000 human children that had been placed in cryogenic stasis, and over 1 million of these little boxes that contained the life forces of souls from Earth. And then the journalist goes, captured human souls? And then the general goes, the colonel goes, souls, yes. And what do they do with these souls? They feed off the energy radiated by the souls. What they are doing, Val, and then Val is the name of the journalist, is that they are taking the life force and they are somehow siphoning it off a little at a time and feeding it to the hybrids in order to keep them alive and trying to keep them alive and create a soul in them. And then the journalist Val says, meanwhile, what happens to the soul in the box? Then the lieutenant colonel says, I cannot answer that question. The 1,000 children that were taken off the craft were then transported to the Pleiadian system. The decision was apparently made that they cannot come back to Earth after this experience with the Greys. I do not know what happened to the souls that were in the boxes. All right? And end quote. This is extremely peculiar and interesting. This ties in with many different things. The fact that there's not just underground, but underwater bases. If we look here at the Andromedan Council, it makes a lot of sense that there would be multiple alien races that are doing this. And it seems as though that non-self-serving ETIs, which tend to be friendly to humans, tend to understand the overall cosmology of things. Now, why do I say that? Because if we take a look here, we're going to understand that officially, Nevada 375 has been officially christened the extraterrestrial highway. Now, that's actually something that the Nevada government or state government has actually authorized. But here's the interesting thing. It's a form of psychological warfare in a way of saying, yeah, people laugh about it publicly because, it attracts tourists. People want to see Area 51's kind of become a joke. But in reality, this is actually a marking for some of the underwater bases that are used. And the reason for this is so that this marking within Nevada allows for a trackable infatuation to occur within a GPS system that can track these UFOs that have the ability to track things much more complex than something of a sonar radar or something like this, because it's very difficult, if impossible, to attract these UFOs there, because again, the UFOs in pure theory are bending gravity, they're bending light, they're bending the laws of physics. They're not breaking them, but they're bending them. But it gets even better. So let's take a look here, for example. Let's take a look at a recent image that was declassified that the US military put out of possible nuke sites. All right. And what we're going to see here, why do we bring this up, nuke sites? This is all going to come full circle. Nuclear sites are very important because not only do they act as targets for other countries, other adversaries or enemies, but these also connect directly to major pipelines and stability infrastructurally within the United States. And also these pipelines have direct access to the deep underground military bases. Now, the reason that this is the case is the U.S. military has said, well, if we're ever attacked, these are the general locations we feel that the American public should know about if we were ever attacked by nukes. But that is not the reason why. The reason is to allow our subconscious to understand that these deep underground military bases exist, and in a cosmic form, there's an understanding that these human souls and these gray alien souls that were trying to be taken from Earth have a lower vibrational entity that allows for the nuclear fission of a bomb to actually enable a certain aspect of the pineal gland that is within the piezoelectric capability that scientists have recently found out to be the case, that activates a lower vibrational state that brings someone alive with whichever body they're in. However, it's not necessarily a good thing. Lower vibrational states tend to make you think more negatively. That's just the basis in fact, scientifically, and everybody knows that, right? So let's take a look, for example, at this here. This is according to ieexplorer.iee.org. And I quote, calcite microcrystals in the pineal gland of the human brain, second harmonic generators, and possible piezoelectric transducers, end quote. So long story short, it pretty much talks about how scientists have found piezoelectricity within the pineal gland, and microcrystals have been found in the same place, which seems to show that there is some type of ascension within our pineal gland that a lot of people think is nonsense. And I understand a lot of people might have turned this video off once they heard pineal gland, but for those that have been sticking with me, I appreciate that. And what you'll see here is that ultimately what we have is an access to the human soul and other souls that don't just apply to humans. And the idea here is that if we go back to the example at the beginning that I gave about the chessboard, pieces trying to be knocked off, right? And it gets even better. But anyways, you're going to see that it doesn't help to destroy anything except for when these nukes hit, and then you have the ability to create a cosmic an unbalance that will affect the Andromedans Council to have the possibility of regulating some type of extraterrestrial life on this planet. Now, let's move on. So let's take a look here at this article by the New York Times, and I quote, absolutely no mercy. Leaked files expose how China organized mass detentions of Muslims, end quote. You don't think that China is working with extraterrestrials in order to provide them certain bodies, if you will? Again, I'm not even going to cite Project LACE that we did about a month ago or so, the low-level augmentative crossbreeding experimentation. However, the Chinese organ harvesting is real. It is not a conspiracy theory by any stretch of the imagination, and everybody knows that because, again, multiple verified sources have reported on this on the ground firsthand, and we also have to look at the fact that these bodies and organs it's not like they're all going on the black market, but when you have Interpol having issues trying to track where these bodies go, what does that tell you? You think the Americans are the only ones working with these extraterrestrials, whether good or bad? I highly doubt that. So the next thing is that I want to cite something having to do with Chile. Now, why do I say Chile? Because according to this source that I mentioned in the beginning about a manipulated wormhole portal, which, by the way, has also been cited to John St. Clair as registering this patent, but we'll get to that in a second. We'll see here that, and I quote, infinityexplorers.com, terror in Chile. Allegedly, a chupacabra has drained the blood out of more than 50 animals, end quote. The problem is this: a chupacabra has never exactly been spotted, or at least been confirmed. For those who are watching this that might have seen one, I don't want to discredit you, so I'm not trying to say that you didn't see it. I'm just saying that nothing's been confirmed. However, this looks starkly similar to the resemblance in which my research has suggested to be human and gray alien hybrids that was allegedly a failed program, all the way back in the 50s, by the way. So this is nothing new. The politics of extraterrestrials and what have you seems to be something very prominent and a very serious issue, to say the least. However, let's take a look here, for example, at Pentagon admits it has UFO debris, releases test results, UFOexplorations.com. Now, what's interesting about this is that all of these materials, all of these releases, all of these contextual press releases and statements are all addressed to one name. And who is that name? John St. Clair. Let's take a look at what patents John St. Clair has filed, okay? And by the way, he doesn't exist if you try to look him up. But anyways, let's just see here. If we look at full body teleportation system, okay, worldwide application in 2004. This is filed by John St. Clair. If you look into the history of the patents filed by quote-unquote John St. Clair, not only are you going to find teleportation, you're going to find many different things like anti-gravity, spacecraft propulsion using photon particles to create negative energy over the hull in order to generate a lift force on the hull. You're going to find a lot of different things going on here. Now, John St. Clair also is the name that the Las Vegas government has issued the extraterrestrial landing pads that they say is a tourist attraction and a joke, quote unquote a joke, which they're putting right in front of everyone's faces. The land of that particular landing pad does not belong to the government. It belongs to John St. Clair. Why is that the case? Why would that be this in this particular situation? Because underneath these locations are wormhole generators that allow for Mr. St. Clair's portals to be activated. And these were the same portals that the Greys, who had these souls and these bodies of both other aliens and of humans, very sadly, try to use to get out of here. Now, how can we prove this? Let's take a look here. Let's look at quantummagazine.org, quantummagazine.org, highly respected magazine in the scientific field. And I quote, "Wormholes reveal a way to manipulate black hole information in the lab." All right? A proposal for building wormhole-connected black holes offers a way to probe the paradoxes of quantum information, end quote. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm a physicist, very much less a quantum physicist, okay? With that being said, though, do you see the drop feeding that's occurring here? The drop feeding that's occurring is that in which is telling us, well, you know, quantum information can be teleported, but we don't know about people just yet. We're not sure. Guys, it's been happening since at least the 50s. Let's not kid ourselves here. Right? So ultimately, this is what we have to look at. This is what we have to say to ourselves is something of substantial evidence here. And then we have to understand that different alien races are involved with Earth for many different reasons. And we're not the center of the universe. This is not the only planet. But when a lieutenant colonel, as I cited earlier, says these things and makes these claims, I'm not telling you guys you got to believe it. I'm just saying take this as you will. There's a deep connection here that has an overall understanding in which nuclear bombs, well, not necessarily bombs, but nuclear fission activates in a negative way these souls. And then we have the wormholes. And it just so happens that these nuclear bomb sites that the U.S. military has said will be the target of attack in case of a nuclear war just so happens to be directed to major pipelines, which will destabilize the economic and infrastructure end of the materialistic side of things on a public end. But on top of all that, it will destroy these underground military bases that coincidentally have these wormhole generators that are used as teleportation devices. Okay, and it seems as though these aliens were trying to distract, a particular race was trying to distract by getting these souls and these bodies and these mutilated bodies off the face of this planet, but it didn't end up working because other races are stopping them. It's very interesting to see, very interesting to watch, and very interesting to just absorb in many different ways. So I know that I was a little bit all over the place, but I want you guys to let me know what you think, and we will catch you guys on Saturday. Cheers.